Three guys who moved into our school from, a suburban school. They were more in than I was. I was an urban kid. And God, I wanted to be one of them. But they hung together and they had little, in jokes. They were really nice guys, but one was president of the student council, one president of the class, and one, treasurer of the class. And I was just me. And I was still fishing for bass in the local park. And they kept talking about going to camp, trout fishing. I thought, oh, geez, that sounds good to me. We were over there on a Thursday afternoon. He said, Bill, why don't you come to camp with us this weekend? And of course, the other three kind of went, oh, good, no man's camp. But yeah, I went, you bet. And we went out to camp, and we had a wonderful time. We went there weekend after weekend. And my first experience fishing with a rod, maybe 8 or 9 feet. About that much line out on the end, with a worm on the end, and put it down in there, and you get a fish out. Oh God, it was so nice. And we fished some of those beautiful little streams out around east of Syracuse, about 30 banks of Pelican Creek out in the Yellowstone Park. It's the most beautiful place. Tundra, wide open. It's a bear management area, so you never have a party of fewer than 4 in there because the bears are everywhere. Geese. And I have a great picture of my friend Peter with a big cutthroat on his rod is bending. And right above him is an eagle looking down, hoping that something's going to go wrong down there. It's just great. And to remember it all those years later. And I discovered that all those years later, the 4 of us sitting on the bank of the stream was still the same order that we sat in. Same 2 guys in the middle, the same 2 on the end. Nothing had changed, except that we looked as though we'd been powdered with talcum and fluffed up with balloons. But it was just wonderful to remember those old days with guys you fished with as a kid. And they're getting fewer and fewer.
One was about 8 and one was about 4. And took him fishing early. He was all excited. He decided I better get the 4-year-old started first. And I can only remember her name. I don't remember the older. Vanessa is the 4. And he got the worm on and he cast it out. And he's turning around and he's rigging up the older daughter's rod. And the little daughter said, Daddy, quick, take this pole. It's making my stomach nervous. Well, she had a fish on it. She knew something was going on. And the rod's going like this. And he looks back and says, Vanessa, get the net. She looks down, picks up the net, and throws it in the water.
Steelhead fishing, it's something that gets in your blood. And what they are is large rainbow trout that usually they come into the rivers in the fall and in the spring. The water was very, very high, but it was fairly clear. So I started to walk in. It was a small creek. I got a wicked hit, and I was hooked up, and the fish just started moving downstream. And all I knew was that it was a big fish. Through my reel, there was like no stopping him. So I started running after him as fast as I could. I was still running slow, and I came to, there was a big log across the creek, and I went to jump over the log. The spikes on the bottom of my sandals caught on the log as I went over, and I went head first. And I did hold on to the rod, and I went head first, totally underwater, it's about 2 feet of water, and I kept my rod up, and tried to do a push-up with the other hand and get myself up. And meanwhile, I could feel my rod starting to buck like this. So I finally got myself to my feet, started after him again. Wouldn't be long before I was able to pull him close to me, and then the line snapped.
Oh,
Honest to God.
sure.
3 lawyers from Boston and a child psychiatrist tumbled out of this van and into a garage in Grant, Iowa, asking, could we please have a cup of coffee and warm up a bit? And the garage attendant was very kind, handed us each a cup of coffee, and we started talking. And I'm sure it was the first time that he had anybody from Boston, much less 3 lawyers and a child psychiatrist, in his garage. And he proceeded to tell us how good the fishing was at the creek in Grant, Iowa. And what they fished for there were catfish. And he was telling us, this is what reminded me of this story, was the diving into the water and wrestling with the steelhead. And he was telling us about how he and his cousins fished for catfish. Just to lie on the bank and sort of reach around under the undercut until you got one and grab it by the mouth and fling it up onto the shore. And we weren't buying it. we said, no, that can't pot. And then he proceeded to tell us about how his cousin had latched onto a really big one. And when he went to pull it up and fling it onto the shore, the catfish took exception and pulled him in and dragged him down to the bridge, quarter mile down the river. And we were laughing and we just thought this was it, and we weren't particularly eager to go back out hunting in the rain and the wind, and listened to that story for a long time, and several other similar stories. And it was only when we got back to Boston and got on the internet and looked up something that he referred to as noodling, or canoodling, something like that, that we realized that we weren't being told a complete fish story, that it actually, people did fish that way.
They have it on
I'm like hell, like trying to catch a fish, and there's all pools, pockets, we're fishing downstream, and we come to the pool, and Dave would throw a little line, and he had a nice little rod, and he'd pull one out. I'd go up the next one, and I try it, nothing. So finally, he says, "Come here, I'm gonna help you." So meanwhile, I think I was using an old bakery cord, remember the bakery, the stuff you tie your cakes up in the bakery? That was my line, and a hook. So he put some leader on it, and put a small hook on it, put a small piece of worm. He said, "All right, now, get up on the other, sneak up on that pool, and drop the hook into the pond, into the pool." And sure enough, bam! That was my first trout. And to this day, I know exactly where that trout was. I could find that spot with my eyes closed.